Everybody knows China, the place where iPhones are made. The country behind TikTok, Temu, Shine, DJI drones, cheap electronics, EV batteries, rare earths, and huge global supply chains. But almost nobody knows this. The man who shaped modern China has a story that feels like a movie. A boy who was born into China's political elite, then publicly humiliated, thrown out of privilege, sent away to the countryside, forced to live in a cave, work in freezing poverty. And that same boy grew up to become the most powerful man in China. Not just powerful, arguably the most powerful Chinese leader since Mao Zedong. And the twist doesn't stop there. Because Xi Jinping is not just China's leader. He influences the price of your phone, the cost of products at Walmart, the future of TikTok, the risk of war over Taiwan, and the direction of the global economy. And maybe the most uncomfortable part of all, he took apart the political system that Deng Xiaoping built specifically to stop China from ever returning to one-man rule. And then he brought it back. So who exactly is Xi Jinping? A survivor? A strategist? A nationalist? An authoritarian? Or some dangerous mix of all of them? And more importantly, why does this story affect our life, even if you don't live anywhere near China? Because this journey from cave to capital isn't just the story of one leader. It's one of the most important political stories of the 21st century. Xi Jinping was born on June 15, 1953 in Beijing, not into an ordinary family. He was born into the Chinese Communist Revolution's inner circle. His father, Xi Jinping, was a senior revolutionary leader. He served as vice premier and was part of the top political elite that helped build the People's Republic of China. In modern terms, Xi Jinping was born as a political insider, a princeling, the son of a Communist Party elite. His early life began with privilege. Elite compounds, top families, political access, that was his world. But then everything fell apart. In 1962, his father was purged. False accusations, internal party struggle. And when the Cultural Revolution began, the whole family became a target. Their home was raided. They were publicly denounced. The family was treated like enemies. Xi himself, who had been born into privilege, suddenly became the son of a disgraced official. And this is where the story turns dark. According to many accounts, Xi was humiliated in public struggle sessions. His family was forced to stand in front of angry crowds. One of his half-sisters died by suicide during the persecution. Think about that for a second. A boy who had been born close to power was now being crushed by the very system his family had helped build. And maybe that is where the first major contradiction in Xi's life begins. Because for most people, an experience like that would create hatred for the system. But in Xi's case, he didn't decide to destroy the system. He decided to rise to the top of it. But how? That's where the real story begins. In 1969, she was about 15 years old. At that age today, most teenagers are in school, on social media, or just beginning to think about the future. She was sent to a remote village in Shaanxi province called Lianjiahe. This happened during Mao's down to the countryside movement, when urban youth were forced to move to rural areas to learn from the peasants. In simple terms, elite city kids were thrown into survival mode. She would spend about 7 years in Lianjiahe, and this was not the kind of struggle you see in motivational speeches. This was real hardship. He lived in a cave dwelling carved into a hillside. He slept on a brick bed. There were fleas, hunger, cold, and isolation. And every day meant hard physical labor. The future leader of China once spent his days carrying manure on his back. That detail sounds almost unbelievable. But details like that became a huge part of Xi's political image later. According to the official Chinese narrative, this was where a soft city boy became a hardened, disciplined, resilient man. And to be fair, the hardship was real. This was not some staged PR event. She really did live under harsh conditions. But there's another layer to this story. Today, Lianjiahe is not just a village. It has become a political shrine. His cave has been preserved. The place has been turned into a symbol of his roots and soul. Party members, students, and soldiers visit it almost like a pilgrimage site. In other words, the village where a teenager was once sent to survive has now been turned into part of the official power narrative. And if you think that's just symbolism, think again. In politics, symbolism is often half the battle. But there is still one big problem. She still had not been fully accepted by the system. And that leads us to one of the most revealing details in his entire life story. Xi Jinping applied to join the Communist Party 10 times, and the first 9 applications were rejected. Why? Because of his father's political disgrace. This detail matters a lot, because it tells you something important about Xi's character. Persistence mixed with calculation. He did not openly fight the system. He did not try to take revenge on it. He kept knocking on the door until it finally opened. In 1974, he was finally accepted into the party. Villagers testified that he worked hard. Local officials approved him, and he became the village party branch secretary. This was his first official leadership role. It was small, but this decision would change everything later. Because in China, joining the party is not just getting a membership card. It is entering the actual structure of power. After that, Xi went to Tsinghua University. He studied chemical engineering. Then he gradually entered the bureaucracy. And that is when his long rise began. A rise so disciplined and so patient that from the outside it almost looked boring. But in politics, boring often means dangerous. Xi's rise was not fast or dramatic in a Hollywood way. It was slow, disciplined, and deeply bureaucratic. From the 1980s to the 2000s, he climbed through province after province. If Chinese politics is a chessboard, Xi was the kind of player who spent less time in the spotlight and more time moving carefully across the board. He spent 17 years in Fujian. He worked in Xiamen. He governed port areas like Ningda. He rose in Fuzhou. Eventually, he became governor. This is where he learned development policy, poverty reduction, local governance, and the strategic importance of a province facing Taiwan. Zhejiang. Then came Zhejiang, one of China's most entrepreneurial provinces. There, she built a reputation for economic growth, development planning, and relatively clean government. This part is important because many people today see Xi only as a hardline strongman. But the Zhejiang chapter shows a more practical, development-focused side of him. And then, in 2007, everything sped up. A major corruption scandal hit Shanghai. Its top leader was removed. She was sent in to stabilize the situation, and he handled it so effectively that within months, he was promoted to the Politburo Standing Committee. That was basically the signal. The future leader had arrived. 2012, Xi Jinping became General Secretary of the Communist Party. In 2013, he became President of China. A boy who once lived in a cave was now the supreme leader of the world's second largest economy. But that was just a rise. The real shock, because Xi did not just sit in the chair, he redesigned the whole room. As soon as he took power, Xi launched the biggest anti-corruption campaign in modern Chinese history. The official message was simple. The party needed to be cleaned up. Both tigers and flies would be punished, meaning both top officials and lower-level bureaucrats. Corruption was a huge problem, but this is where the moral complexity begins. Was the campaign really about fighting corruption? Yes. Was it also a tool for removing political rivals? Also yes. That is what makes Xi's story a gray area. This is not a simple hero versus villain story. Top figures like Zhou Yongkang fell. Military officers were purged. Fear and discipline spread throughout the party. Over time, millions of officials were investigated. The result? 2 things happened. First, Xi's image became stronger, a serious leader cleaning up the system. Second, potential rivals were systematically weakened. So the anti-corruption campaign was both a surgical knife, and then Xi did something else that made him fundamentally different from the post-Mao leaders before him. He didn't just control people, he changed the institutions. In 2017, Xi Jinping thought was written into the party constitution. For a living leader, that was something almost unheard of since Mao. Then in 2018, presidential term limits were removed. Read that again. Term limits removed. That meant Deng Xiaoping's system, built specifically to stop another lifelong ruler from emerging in China, lost one of its most important safeguards. And if you think this was only symbolic, it wasn't. This was a tectonic shift in modern Chinese politics. Up to this point, this might sound like a powerful political biography, but now comes the part where this story becomes your story. Before you think this doesn't affect you, consider this. China under Xi is still one of the biggest manufacturing centers on Earth. Your iPhone, laptop components, solar panels, EV batteries, drones, fast fashion, and cheap online products. All of these are deeply connected to China. Apple, Walmart, Tesla, Nvidia, TikTok, DJI, Shine, Temu. All of them directly or indirectly operate inside a system shaped by Xi's decisions. If Beijing tightens data rules, companies shake. If export controls expand, prices move. If US-China tariffs rise, consumers pay more. If supply chains shift, businesses all over the world have to adjust. A simple example, you may think the price of your coffee maker is decided by a store, but in reality, part of that price is also being shaped in Zhongnanhai, food policy, tariffs, regulation, and a manufacturing environment created by China's leadership. And it's not just economics. The future of TikTok? Linked to US-China tensions. The risk around Taiwan? Linked to Xi's calculations. The semiconductor race? Driven in part by Xi's push for self-reliance. Rare earths and EV supply chains? Shaped by Xi-era industrial policy. That is a level of influence very few leaders in the world have. And then we get to the most dangerous file of all, Taiwan. Xi Jinping has not treated Taiwan as just a diplomatic issue. He has tied it to his larger historical mission. In his language, reunification is part of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. Unofficially, it also looks like part of his personal legacy project. Under Xi, the Chinese military has modernized at remarkable speed. Defense spending has grown. The command structure has been reorganized. Missile forces have improved. Aircraft carriers have entered service. The nuclear arsenal has expanded, and military drills around Taiwan have become a regular feature of regional life. Now, to be fair, China's claim over Taiwan did not begin with Xi. This is not a new issue, but Xi has made it more personal, more central, and more urgent. That is why US intelligence agencies, regional governments, and major businesses are all watching the years around 2027 very closely. And here's the irony. A man who spent part of his youth as a victim of state power now personally commands one of the most powerful state machines on Earth. History is not always poetic. Sometimes it is dark symmetry. But there is still another side to this story, because if we only focus on the dark side, we miss why so many people see Xi very differently. To understand Xi Jinping honestly, criticism alone is not enough. Inside China, and even outside it, many people see him as a strong, disciplined, strategic leader. He cracked down on corruption, restored party discipline, modernized the military, pushed poverty reduction, made China more confident on the world stage, and refused to let China bow to Western pressure. For many Chinese citizens, especially those who remember the corruption, inequality, and disorder of earlier decades, Xi came to symbolize seriousness and control. He sent a clear message. The party is in charge. The state will not be weak. China will not be pushed around. And honestly, that message has been politically effective. But here is the problem. The same system that creates efficiency can also create fear. The same discipline that creates order can also crush dissent. The same unity that creates strength can also narrow freedom. Xi's China stands on that contradiction. On one hand, stability, scale, ambition, strategy. On the other hand, surveillance, censorship, repression, and one-man centralization. And maybe that is why Xi's so difficult to understand. He is not a cartoon villain. He is not a simple hero either. He is a very real, very uncomfortable form of modern power. At this point, the question is no longer whether Xi Jinping is powerful. He clearly is. The real questions are these. Can one man control a system this large for the long term? Will centralized power make China stronger or more fragile? Will Xi's security first, self-reliant model make China a superpower or isolated? And most dangerously, how far is he willing to go on Taiwan? That is why 2026 and 2027 matter so much. The 15th five-year plan is being rolled out. Leadership reshuffles are happening. There is still no clear successor, and military purges may be signaling deeper tensions inside the system. So yes, on the surface, Xi looks fully in control. But the more power is centralized, the more the system depends on the judgment of one person. And when the world's second largest economy, one of its biggest militaries, and one of the most important manufacturing hubs on Earth are all heavily shaped by one man's decisions, the whole world pays attention. Xi Jinping's story is a journey from cave to capital. But even more than that, it is a warning. Power is not defined only by elections. Power is built through stories, through institutions, through fear, through discipline, and sometimes by turning personal suffering into political legitimacy. A persecuted teenager learned how the system worked from the inside. Then he climbed it. Then he reshaped it in his own image. So this is not just a China question. It is a bigger question. When one leader becomes powerful enough to shape your shopping bill, your social media apps, global supply chains, and the peace of the Pacific, is he still just a foreign leader? Or has he already become a hidden character in your own life? If you watched all the way to the end, genuinely, you are a legend. Let me know in the comments what you want next. And I'll see you in the next one.